We live? Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program Teacher Certification course. For this evening, I'll be your instructor, and thank you for the warm welcome. You can be seated. And sorry, I got to catch my breath. We had a change of plans at the last second, and we're gonna get through this class tonight. I didn't really have much time to prepare, if you call 2 minutes enough time. But we're gonna go ahead and pick right up where we left off last time. Now all we got to do now is figure out where that was. Wasn't that chapter 4? Tick tock, time management, right? And let's see. If you're joining us online, if you're watching on the Facebook live stream, go ahead. If you want to go to the top of the page, there's a drop-down menu there that has it shows you the manuals. We're in the 5th manual right now, the responsibility unit, which is the 5th in the intermediate series in the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. We've been in this for a little while now. We're about halfway through. And we're hoping to continue tonight where we left off, and I believe it was on page, this is a really short chapter, by the way. We were talking last time on page 66 about how time can be your enemy or your friend. Tonight it was definitely not my friend, but I'm hoping I can possibly make it my friend as we go along here in this lesson. And you know, I got to say, the responsibility unit of the Peaceful Solution is probably the book I've as a teacher that I've probably taught less than any of the other books, because normally we don't make it this far when we have students that come to the Peaceful Solution that take all 5 books. It's very rare. There's only been a few students that have actually done that have gone through all 5 books, and I'm talking about people that are sent by agencies to the Peaceful Solution. But so of course all the teachers will tell you we're learning too, right along with you, you know, and we really like your feedback too, because it helps us, because, you know, we all feed off each other, you know, we sharpen each other's wits with our knowledge and our experiences that we've all had. That's why I like watching the other teachers, because they have a lot of information and a lot of experiences that I didn't have growing up, and it's just really wonderful to share that and have it shared with us. Okay, so we did leave off on page 67, which is wants versus needs, but I do want to first of all go back. Let's go back to the lesson plan, purpose and objective on page let's see, LP4C, and we're on step number 3. We'll go ahead and read that before we carry on here. Explain that without evaluating what activities and obligations need to be accomplished on a daily basis, it's easy to leave important duties undone. Have students read the sections Time Can Be Your Enemy or Your Friend and Wants versus Needs, found on pages 66 and 67 at home. Stress that the effective use of time involves prioritizing, planning, and scheduling, and even double-checking your schedule, or even making sure, well, I'll just leave it at that. Let's see, so let's go over to page 66. We'll do a quick review here about time can be your enemy or your friend. It says the passage of time is something that most people take for granted. And remember, I showed you all those in the last class. I showed you all of the statistics about time. You know, like if you lived to be 73, you know, you'd be like 26,000 days old or something like that. I don't remember quite the numbers, and I don't have them with me tonight, but I would that I did. But you know, there's a lot of time that we have, but there's a lot of time that's used for sleeping. Remember, you got to have at least 7 hours a night of sleep. There's a lot of time spent in the bathroom, we found out. There's a lot of time spent probably sitting down to eat a meal. We didn't even look that one up. That takes sometimes about 30 minutes, to sit down and eat. And so a lot of your life is spent, waiting and doing other things where you don't really have as much time as it appears to get the really important things done. Okay, so we really need to take advantage of the time we have and not take it for granted, as it says here. We know the sun always rises in the east and sets in the west. But you know what? We're not guaranteed that we're going to be able to see the sun much longer. Well, what do I mean by that? There's not going to be some kind of, the heavens, the planets are going to collide and the sun's going to be, but, I remember reading in the 80s an article about nuclear winter, and how if Russia or the United States or one of these other nuclear capable countries start shooting off their nuclear weapons, they could block out the sun, where, we would have no sunlight for quite a while. And the sun and the moon wouldn't be seen. And life on Earth, the Earth would get really cold because of no sun. The life in the oceans would start to die because they also depend on the sun. And it showed a lot of things about this nuclear winter and how, more people would die from the freezing than the nuclear weapons themselves, and the after effects. So that's how, we could be thinking that, the sun will rise in the east and the west, but we might not be able to see it if we don't find a peaceful solution. Or the nations, we found the peaceful solution. We know what it is, but the nations need, to get on board with this peaceful solution so we don't go that way. It says many people try to squeeze in as many activities as they can in the daytime hours. For those of you who have busy lives, it might even seem as if time is your enemy because you often run out of time before you run out of things to do. Okay, and there's plenty to do. There should be anyway. I hate hearing I'm bored, I haven't said that since I was probably in high school or junior high school. I'm bored. When I hear young people say that now, I try to find them something to do, they say that, because nobody should be bored. There's plenty to do. Pick up a book and read, pick up something where you can build your mind, find something to do, go out and plant a garden, do something, ride your bike, get some exercise. But do something productive with your time. Don't take it for granted. Did you ever have a day when you had a lot of things to do that you forgot to do something that turned out to be very important? Well, I had one just now today. I probably should have checked with David because David's been sick. One of our teachers, David. Everybody knows the beloved David. I had to fill in for him last class. And there was a miscommunication where I guess I made him believe that I was teaching tonight too. Well, when I didn't see his car out in the parking lot here a few minutes ago, I thought, wait a minute, I hope he's okay because he's been sick. And I called him and he said, well, I'm in Arkansas right now. I said, huh? Now mind this is 5:26 p.m. when I called him. But, we make the adjustments in the peaceful solution, right? We do what we got to do here, don't we? We get it done. We have to be ready in season and out of season. We have to always be ready because we have knowledge. The peaceful solution gives us plenty of knowledge where you can get up here and you can teach a class, okay? And now it says, carefully consider the most important things you need to do for the day and make a schedule that includes how much time each activity would take. And then if you stay focused on that schedule, you can make time your friend instead of your enemy. And then we went over the 4 steps, the basic steps to making time your ally or your friend, which were know your needs versus your wants, which we're going to talk about on page 67 tonight, and prioritize, schedule, organize, and focus. Okay? So let's go ahead and pick up on page 67 in wants versus needs. Now it says the first step in managing your time effectively is to learn the difference between what you want to do and what you need to do. And I did go over some of those things last time, like, you need to eat. We need food to eat. We need water to drink or bathe or wash our clothes, etc. We need, what else do we need? We need a roof over our head, right? Those are needs. Those are things that we have to have, that to live, okay, a comfortable life. But, not everyone has those things, not even the basic things that I'm talking about here, the basic needs, clean water. I think we went over in the self-control unit and possibly in another one of the units, might have been the respect unit, where we talked about clean drinking water. How much of the earth's water is drinkable? 1%. That means that you have to desalinate water. You have to take the salt out, because most of the earth is salt water, so you have to have desalination plants to take the salt out of the water. Or you have to boil the water to boil out the, which I found out when I was about 7 years old, 8 years old in Alaska, pristine lakes in Alaska where man has never touched, but I found out that you can't just drink the lake water, even if it looks pristine and pretty, it's stagnant water. And I had myself a drink of that lake water one time when I was about 7, and boy, I'll never forget it. I was throwing up all the way home for about 4 hours in the car from drinking that water, not boiling it. Because remember, there's animals that drink out of the water or that bathe in the water themselves. There's fish that are, leaving droppings, and, there's all kinds of other critters. And it's stagnant water. It's not moving water. So, you can get very sick. And remember, we have children all over the world right now dying from cholera from filthy drinking water, in those war-torn nations like Syria, Iraq, probably, Sudan, other places like that, where they've bombed the infrastructure into oblivion, and there's no clean drinking water, that we take for granted. And, really, even here in America, we don't have clean drinking water. You do realize that, right? We went over all that, where we showed, even the drinking water that we're drinking from the tap, which I stopped doing, 20 plus years ago, probably about 25, 26 years ago. I haven't drank water from a tap, because the Culligan man will even tell you what's in that tap water, which is parasites and other amoebas that you really don't want in your body, that can actually really hurt you and make you sick, or at least start bringing your body down, and your mind down, because there's things in there that can actually, remember, even in the waters in the lakes, how you read about people swimming in a lake and they get some kind of brain-eating amoeba, and next thing you know, they're dead from swimming in the lake, or walking on the beaches that are filthy, where people are leaving all their used condoms and beer bottles and everything else, needles and human waste. And ships are dumping their waste right off the coast, and it's all washing up on the shore. We're living in a very dangerous, filthy world, as we know, so we got to be very careful. Just wanted to remind you of all those things, because those are things that we need. We got to have clean, healthy food. We don't. We don't have clean, healthy food in a lot of cases, okay? And we've shown you, the teachers have gone out to extremes to show, how you really need to protect yourself, even when you go to the grocery store, the food that you're buying. A lot of it's genetically modified, which means, they've messed with the food. It's not even really food anymore for the most part. They've changed the molecular structure of the food, okay? And the vegetables, you got to wash them off and soak them in salt water, and they'll even tell you at the store you need to do this, and I really feel for people that I see in the store, popping that grape in their mouth to see if they want to buy it. I try to I try to remind my students that, number one, unless you had permission to eat that grape, you stole it. Okay? Number two, you might have just caught your death by putting it in your mouth or caught some kind of disease. Because how many people have been touching those grapes before you came up and popped it in your mouth? And how many of them are not washing their hands in the store? Right? Think about these things. I've told you I've used public restrooms. Haven't used one since 2006. I've been keeping track. I haven't used a public restroom since 2006. But when I did, I'd be standing, or I'd be in the stall and I'd hear somebody come out of the other stall and I would hear the door open up and they'd leave and I didn't hear the sink running. And I'm like, that person just walked right out of here without even washing their hands. I never even stopped to think, that's why they have notes on the notes on the wall that say, please wash your hands before leaving this restroom. I guess some people need to be reminded to wash their hands. To me, it was just a no-brainer. It was common sense. But is common sense common anymore? No. That's why we have the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, to put that common sense back into the people. Okay, so anyway, I could go on and on about that kind of stuff, but remember, these are needs. We've got to have food. We've got to have water. We have to have shelter. We have to have love. We have to have somebody that cares about us. We got to have friends. We got to have family. Okay? We have to have education. These things are needful. We've got to have those things. Now, things that you need to do are necessary in order to function effectively and meet your obligations. Things that you want to do are those things that, if you're honest with yourself, are not that important and may in fact hinder you from fulfilling your obligations, like wanting to watch TV, wanting to play games, wanting to go outside and climb the tree rather than doing your homework, right? And I'm talking about right now, we're in the junior high level, right? Or wanting to go to the mall with your friends, right? When your father asks you to mow the lawn, well, unless you ask your father to go to the mall first and do it when you get done, then you need to, you should follow that instruction. Okay, it says, it gives the example, your father asks you to do your chores, like mow the lawn, and just as you're about to do this chore, your friend calls and says that his brother's giving him a ride to the park and asks if you want to come. The answer that takes into consideration what you need to do, which is to do your chore as your father has asked, would be no. That is, if you stop and consider. Remember the STOP acronym? Stop, think, which one is an obligation? Going with my friend and playing around, or doing the chore that my father asked me to do? So if if you take it into consideration, then you're gonna know that, what I need to do is do the chore. And your answer to your friend is going to be no. Of course, going to the park is far more appealing than mowing the lawn. Just like it's far more appealing to when that alarm goes off at 5:30, it's far more appealing to hit that snooze button than it is to get out of bed, right? I've been finding that out lately. I got to admit to you, I've been having a hard time getting up lately, and I think it's because I'm not sleeping well at night. I'm tossing and turning a lot. I'm waking up a lot during the nighttime for some reason. But it might be because I'm not drinking enough water, or in some nights I think I'm drinking too much water because I keep getting up because I have to take care of business, But something's keeping me up, and my sleep cycle's kind of like off, so I'm not getting up on time because I feel tired. Okay, so, and it's far more appealing to hit that snooze button, and you know how that works. You hit the snooze button once, and how many other times you're going to hit it? Well, you're going to keep hitting it till you push the limit, at least I do. And I have one of those 5-minute interval ones, and usually takes about 6 times before I can get up. But I'm working on it. In fact, I heard the author of The Peaceful Solution just a couple years ago talking about, he said that what he does when he gets out of bed, he's very tired. Sometimes he's very tired, but what he does is he starts running in place, jogging in place to get his blood moving. So I'm thinking I'm going to try that and see if that helps out, possibly even set my clock an hour early. I don't know. Something. I got to do something. I got to figure something out to get out of this funk I'm in here. Okay, so, of course, going to the park is far more appealing than mowing the lawn, so you might ask your friend if you wouldn't mind waiting an hour while you complete your chore. You could ask if he'd like to help so you could leave earlier, or ask if he would go the next day instead. By focusing on what you need to do and making other arrangements for what you want to do, you can begin to responsibly manage your time. And as I mentioned in the last class, that's how it all starts, just with that one choice, to make the responsible choice, puts you on a path of making more responsible choices. It gets easier as you go if you'll keep up with it. But don't slack off. Once you slack off on anything, man, it's hard to get back started again. You can do it, but it's hard. You just got to keep trying. Okay, so here's another example. You need to study for your midterm exam, which is scheduled for tomorrow. A bunch of your friends are going to the planetarium to watch the meteor shower, and you asked to go. You need to study, but meteor showers are rare, and you want to see the show. The responsible thing would be to go see the meteor shower, but come straight home instead of staying to hang out with your friends so you have time to study for your test. Okay, so understanding the difference between what you want to do and what you need to do takes careful thought and being honest with yourself. You have to stop, think, and then make the right choice to be responsible. In other words, it takes self-control. And at this time, we've already, if you've made it to the responsibility unit, we went through this book about self-control. And we learned this book was 233 pages. 233 pages of what self-control is and how to develop it in our life and maintain it in our life. That's a lot of information, and that's why we always go back in the books and the classes to try to remind ourselves and keep up with the things that we've learned and recall them to our attention. Okay, so it says you have to stop and think, make a right choice to be responsible. In other words, it takes self-control. There will always be fun activities to pull you away from the things you need to do. This is why you must be willing to practice self-control, because having fun should never come before fulfilling your obligations to yourself and to others. So let's go back to LP 4D, Step 4. We just finished Step 3, where it says, inform students that one of the best ways to manage time is to learn how to prioritize their needs based upon the order of importance. So we're going to go into now about prioritizing. For example, chores and homework should have come before watching television or talking on the phone with friends. Have students, and by the way, watching television and doing your homework at the same time ain't going to work. Okay, you can't do it. You can't sit there and focus while you have that one-eyed monster going, because you know as well as I do what's going to be more appealing, looking at your math test or looking at that one-eyed monster. Yeah, I don't get mesmerized when I do math. I don't go into a what do they call that, a trance when I'm doing math. Although sometimes I feel like I am, because I get stuck on something and I'm trying to figure it out. But I'm sure children feel that way sometimes too. But you actually go into a trance when you're watching television, and it's really appealing to sit there and just stare at that thing. But it's not real appealing to sit there and stare at your homework, is it? So don't try to turn on the TV and try to do your homework at the same time. It ain't going to work. Just a tip. Have students turn to page 68 through 70 in their handbooks to read the section Prioritize. They are to then complete the accompanying activities. Call on volunteers to share their list of after-school priorities, and note that although students might have similar lists, there will be some variation based upon personal preferences and parental expectations. That's right, because some parents are real sticklers for getting your homework done too, aren't they? Okay, so let's go over to page 68, and let's look at that prioritize. Okay, so at the top of the page, it has the definition of prioritize. And I really love these definitions because I'm really big on words. To decide what is most important and to do those things first. Prioritize. In fact, you see two words there. You see prior in that word, prior. Prior means before. So prior, you're doing everything in the order of importance. Like, what should I do before I do this or before I do that? What's the most important thing to do? And that's what you need to decide. Okay? And I would say probably in the last 3 years of my life, I've been practicing this a lot more, prioritizing, because I have a lot of different things I have to do, a lot of different classes I have to prepare for. So I know I have deadlines. So what I got to do is I got to work on one thing a little bit. I got to work on another thing a little bit. And then I got to work on another thing here a little bit. And I got to work on another thing here. And every day I got to kind of interchange it. And actually it works really well because you know how you work on something for a long time? Anything for like a day or two, and then finally you just kind of get burnt out on it. And you're like, man, I just want to quit looking at this, this screen. I want to stop. And then if you jump into something different, it kind of breaks the monotony, and you get more energized that way. If you break things up, and you don't stay on one thing too long. Okay. So it does help to do that and to learn to prioritize in that way. So prioritize says once you distinguish, and that word means to tell the difference between your needs and wants, the next step is to rank the things you need to do based on the order of importance. This is called prioritizing. Consider the following list of needs. Use the blank lines to rank them from what must be done first, second, third, and fourth. So they have a list here of things, and you're going to ask your students to prioritize what's the most important things, 1 through 4, and list 1 through 4 on that sheet. Okay, so the first thing says go to school, get dressed, shower and brush your teeth, eat breakfast. Well, let's say you just go to school and skip those other 3. What's going to take place if you show up at school with no clothes on? I don't know. They might let you in these days. I don't know. I hope not. But if you come with school with no clothes, isn't it a no-brainer? You're not getting in. No shirt, no shoes, no service, right? Okay, so that wouldn't be the thing to do. Go to school first. That wouldn't be the first thing, right? So what should you do first? Should you shower and brush your teeth first? Excuse me? Well, it depends. I guess it would depend. If you're a teenager, when I was young, my dad always taught me when I get up, pray before I do anything. So I would have to get dressed first to do that because I didn't want to, I didn't want to pray with no clothes on. So I would get up, get dressed, do a prayer, and then I would go take my shower. Okay? So it just depends, like what your priorities are, I guess, in that field. But yeah, you could get dressed first, and then you could eat breakfast, right? And then you could take a shower. But you still have to get dressed again. So there'd be 2 dressings then, wouldn't there? Okay, I'm confusing you, right? Okay, so number 1 should be shower and brush your teeth, it says. Number 2, get dressed. Number 3, eat breakfast. Number 4, go to school. Okay, that would be that would be how you would prioritize that. Okay, if you're a teenager. Often we prioritize our needs without realizing it. Of course, you will need to get dressed before you go to school. If you walk into school wearing your pajamas, you're going to get some pretty funny looks. Well, don't they have some kind of thing, in a workplace where they have adults wear their pajamas? You ever seen that before? Yeah, they tell the adults, they have a day at work where they say, wear your pajamas to work. I'm not telling you this is right. This is immoral. You shouldn't be wearing your pajamas to work, but they do it. I've seen it. Look it up. Some companies actually promote that as an activity. You know, wear what you wear at night to work tomorrow. You know, and they have fun with it, you know, where everybody shows up in their PJs, you know. That's not something you should do, but that's things that we do in a world that's immoral, that hasn't been taught moral character. This is what we do. And, of course, this is why we have what? STDs, divorce, right? Unwanted pregnancies, etc. Because I'm sure, you know, if some woman and some man show up to work, you know, total strangers showing up to work with their pajamas on, that's not promoting anything that's going to be beneficial, is it? Isn't that going to stoke something in someone's mind when they see someone in their pajamas? Okay, I'm just telling you, this goes on. Some of you look like you never heard of it before, but it does go on in workplaces, okay? I don't think they're doing it at the school. They're promoting other things at school that shouldn't be done, but I don't think that's one of them. I hope not. Okay, so it says, however, there might be some variation in ranking hygiene, showering and brushing your teeth, and eating. In other words, you might do those differently than they have ranked here. Some people, based upon their personal choice, might eat breakfast and then shower. Okay? You know, they might eat their breakfast first because they think, well, I want to get all that stuff off my teeth when I'm done, you know? I don't want to, you know, have to brush my teeth again after I've already brushed them when I got up. So the bottom line is, when it comes to prioritizing, some things will be ranked based upon the individual's preference, upbringing, and needs. Like I told you, when I was brought up, we were told to do a certain thing when we got up first. So I would prioritize these things a little bit different. So it says, using a typical day after school, list the things you need to do in the first column. Then list the things you want to do in the second column. And lastly, use the third column to prioritize your list of needs and wants. Okay, so and it gives the example, you know, and you can have them do as many as you know, at least 3 or 4 example needs and wants, and then prioritize them. It gives you one here, do your homework. That's a need. A want is go to the park. What takes priority? What should be first? What should you decide is most important in that case? Well, going to the park or doing your homework first? Okay. And, you know, there would also be an option, too. You know, some people work well outside. Possibly you could do your homework at the park. Like you could do your homework outside where the sun's shining, and, you know, some people like sitting outside and they get things done outside. So it's a possibility you could do it that way, right? But the bottom line is, you're not going to go to the park and play around. You got to get that homework done first, okay? All right, so let's look. Excuse me. Let's go back now to LP4D, because we just looked at the prioritizing. Let's go to step 5. And remember what we're going over. We're going over the steps in making time our friend, okay? And we went over wants versus needs, prioritizing, and now number 5, we're going to talk about being organized. It says, ask students, how do you feel when you have to search for something you need? The answers might include frustrated, stressed, or angry. And I think it's talking about, you know, your book you need for school, or something, you know, that you need to take to school. And because you didn't organize and keep things in their proper place, now you're pulling your hair out because you can't find something at the last minute when you need it. Tell students that another important aspect of time management is organizing their personal belongings. Ask students to talk about some of the things they could organize in order to manage their time more effectively. And the answers might include clothes or school supplies. I don't know if they're still doing it, but when I went to elementary school and in middle school, well, I know in elementary, I don't know about middle, I think middle school we were a lot slacker on that kind of stuff, but we had like a box, like we kept all of our glue and ruler and, you know, pencils, like one of those little boxes. And then the night before school, my dad would have me put out on my bed the clothes I was going to wear the next day. You know, I'd have a shirt folded, a pair of pants, and stuff on the end of my bed. So when I got up out of bed, I could get into my clothes. I already have them ready, you know, so I didn't have to be looking around for something to wear. And like I told you before, I really appreciate that guidance and that kind of training I got when I was young to be organized like that. Okay, now it says, have students turn to page 71, 72 in their handbook and read the section, Get Organized, and emphasize that disorganization wastes time and causes frustration. Okay? By the way, so frustration, is that a, let me read something to you here. Let me go back to the self-control unit here. Would that be a positive or a negative emotion? What do you think? Negative? Somebody said negative? Frustration? Okay, somebody said negative. You're right. Page 31. I'm going to read it to you. Page 31 of the self-control unit. Frustration. Frustration means dissatisfaction that comes from unresolved problems or unfulfilled needs. So if we become frustrated, you know, remember emotions, it's uncontrolled frustration. That's the problem. Okay, sometimes we all get frustrated about things. But when we don't control that frustration, right, what can it turn into? Well, it's a step before rage. We could become angry, right? And then next thing you know, we're yelling and screaming at the dog or the cat or our mom or dad because we can't find something. Whose fault was that? Was it the one you're yelling at? No. Our fault. We need to take responsibility for our action or inactions, not blame it on other people, right? It's not the cat's fault. It's not the dog, unless your cat ate your homework, you know, or did something else to it, or, you know, the dog got off with it or something. But even then, you still have to use self-control. You can't beat your dog, you know, for eating your homework. You know, dogs aren't taught the peaceful solution. They don't have that common sense, you know. They like to get into stuff, you know. Okay, so, yeah, so frustration can lead to other things, you know. So you have to be careful. Okay, and remember, it's our choice when we become frustrated. It's our choice to be frustrated. Okay, remember, emotions are based on our thoughts. Okay? Thoughts. Everything starts with a thought, and then it leads to the feelings, which frustration is a feeling. It's an emotion. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Waste causes frustration. Okay, so let's go over to page 71 now, and let's look a little bit. Let's get organized here. Let's learn about getting organized. By the way, well, hold on. Did I skip a page? Hold on a minute. Hold on. I'm trying to get organized. Hold on. Let me get organized here. I got 2 books open. Let me see what I did wrong. Okay. Okay. I see what I did. I apologize. What I did is I skipped scheduling, didn't I? Ah, okay, I see. Well, there's a lesson to be learned right there, isn't there? Now, you probably don't know this, but I did that on purpose just to show you. No, I really did make a mistake. Okay, so yeah, let's look at page 69. We jumped ahead of ourselves. Okay, so schedules. Let's talk about schedules. Says the third step in learning to make time your friend is to learn to organize your duties, chores, and activities. And this is best done by using a schedule to keep everything in an orderly, easy to follow manner. And you can look off to the right there, and it has a to-do list. You know, not everybody carries those around, especially a middle school student, but you can teach them to do so. You know, you can teach them that they can write things down like that and learn to schedule their events. Many people keep a schedule of what they need to do in their minds. But the problem with that with me is I tend to forget what the schedule was if I only have it in my mind, right? I might remember some of the most important things, but some of the what I consider to be less important things might slip my mind. So it's really important to write those things down if you have a heavy schedule like that. And I know children, for the most part, they know their schedule. An intermediate or a middle school student knows their schedule. When they go to school, they know I got this class at 8 o'clock, I got this class at 8:45, I got this class at 9:30. They have their schedule worked out. Now, they might not remember what homework they need to turn in for that class that day or whatever, so it's important to write these things down. It says, for instance, you know that on a weekday you need to wake up at 7 a.m. and be ready to leave the house by 7:40 in order to catch the bus and arrive at school on time. Having done this for so long, it's become a habit, and you can remember this basic schedule without having to write it down. And this is called internalizing your schedule. In other words, it becomes part of you. It becomes habit because you've been doing it so much. It's kind of like getting up and brushing your teeth or making your bed or whatever. It just becomes a habit. However, you will find that as you get older, you'll have many different duties and obligations that will not always occur at the same time. And without taking the time to organize and write down your duties for the day, you might forget to do something important or arrive late for a function. So, making a daily to-do list, preferably the night before, will help you organize and schedule your activities. And like I said, some people have a lot more activities. They have jobs that require a whole lot of things they got to remember, and some people might not have as many, Some people, their boss calls them in the morning and goes over their schedule with them for the day, and they tell them, hey, we need to start with this, and we need to get this done by 10 o'clock, and we need to do, and they prioritize and they schedule whatever needs to be done throughout the day. I remember I used to watch those cop shows, like Hill Street Blues, and they always had that roll call in the morning, where the cops all came in and they'd get a briefing from the sergeant or the chief of police or something. All right, here's what we're going to do today. Here's our priorities, here's what we got to watch for, et cetera, So sometimes those schedules or those prioritizing goes on. They get briefed in the morning on these things, at work. But a lot of us don't, so we got to write things down because it's hard to remember if you have a lot of things you need to do. So making up a schedule and organizing your time takes planning. So take some time daily to sit down and consider what you need to accomplish for that day, and do not procrastinate. I know I've told you this before. I put the pro in procrastination, waiting for the last minute to do things is a bad idea. Trying to cram for the exam, wait the night before to do your studies for your test. You're not going to do as well as you could have done if you'd have been doing a little bit, reviewing a little bit throughout the week, and preparing. Because now you're going to be up late because you're trying to get it all done at once. You're going to be tired the next day, and your mind's not going to be at optimal performance peak level to be able to pass that test. So it says, so don't procrastinate. In other words, do not put off for tomorrow what needs to be done today. Write it down in a notebook that you have set aside for that purpose. And I think nowadays everybody uses their phones. A lot of people have those notepads on their phones, and they write themselves notes. Some people even have those, they have their phone where you can put a message on there to remind yourself. It's like a voice message. You talk into it. Please remind me to call Joe at 7 p.m., right? And then at 7 p.m., the phone alarm goes off. Call Joe, right? So we have that modern technology now, that aids and assists us too, By the way, I read an interesting article today. I want to share something with you. I didn't have time to bring any slides or any visuals, but I can somewhat remember what I read. 79%. Parents, listen to me now. 79% of teenagers said that they don't want smartphones anymore. Yeah, you can clap for that. Sounds like they're getting pretty smart. They're figuring something out here. They said it makes them feel better when they don't have their phone. They feel less stress. They feel at peace and calm when the phone's not there, when they don't have it. Now, some of them say that, they go through what they call, and even adults, I remember they used to have this retreat. They actually have retreats where adults leave their phone at home and they don't bring anything with them, and they go for 3 days to some retreat somewhere without any phone, any kind of communication with the outside world, just so they can focus and meditate and get their mind back in order. And they say it's like heaven on earth without a phone. At first, they go through what they call withdrawals, because you can't sit there. Wait a minute. Where's that square thing I like to push buttons with? Where's that at? Where's that at? But then after they get through the withdrawals, right? A calm comes over them. They start feeling better. Okay. And then by the time that 3-day retreat's over, they don't care if they ever see a phone again. But it said 79% of teenagers said they really don't care about smartphones anymore because they're basically, the social media is ruining children's ability to communicate, their ability to focus, their ability to have peace and calm in their life. There's just way too much going on that internet, that they get involved in, that just brings a lot of turmoil in their life. So they're saying they feel like they'd be much better off without it. So remember that, folks, before you go out and buy your child a phone. Okay? Right now they might think they want one because they see all their friends have one, but in the long run, they're going to be glad if you don't get them one. Okay, so, okay. All right, so it shows you to write all these things down in a notebook that you have set aside for that purpose, and as you accomplish each task, check it off. And why do we check it off whenever we accomplish a task? First of all, it gives us a visual guide. It shows our progress, makes us feel better when we see that we're getting things done. I know when I get serious and I write a list when I have things I have to do and I get a list going and I start getting those things done and checking them off, man, it makes me feel so great. I feel like I'm accomplishing something, but it really does help to write these things down. Now it says, warning, warning, warning. No, this is not Lost in Space. Do not put so many activities on your daily list that you become overwhelmed and frustrated trying to get it all done. I can see that fell flat. Nobody here watched Lost in Space, I guess, right? I guess that was like in the 60s or something, like early 60s. So old I am. I don't even know it's on TV anymore, so I have to go back to the 60s. Okay, so don't put so many activities on your daily list that you become overwhelmed and frustrated trying to get it all done. First, write down what absolutely must be done that day, and if there's extra time, additional activities can be scheduled. Fill out a page for each day. Okay, so turn the page to page 70, and it shows a 5-day schedule on the next page. It says below is a 5-day schedule. Fill in the blanks with the correct day to schedule your activities. And although it might seem time-consuming at first, it will save time in the long run. And what do they mean by that? Why will it save time in the long run if we write it down? Well, for instance, if you know at 7 o'clock or 9 a.m. you have a class, and you know what book you need for that class, it's going to remind you, if you look at your schedule, I need to bring that book. So that way you don't get frustrated when you forgot their book, right? Or whatever 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 supplies you might need for that activity. You know, if you looked at your schedule, it's going to remind you, hey, I need to bring this, this, and this, so you don't get frustrated and then have a bad day, right? Yelling and screaming and getting angry and everything else, right? Okay, it's going to save time because then you're not going to have to go looking for it, etc., right? In the long run, you're saving yourself time, even though it might seem time-consuming to fill this out. And remember, you can make a 7-day schedule. This is just based on a 5-day work week, but a lot of us, we work daily, man. We have things to do. So you can make a 7-day planner there. Okay, it says, remember, keeping a schedule will help you keep up with your various activities and will enable you to see how you can fit everything into your day. Seeing everything listed will also help you to be realistic about what you want to accomplish or what you can accomplish. If your schedule is jam-packed and there's no way you can accomplish everything, then it's time to prioritize and evaluate what must be done based on needs and wants. So you gotta go back and you have to decide, consider what's important, what's not important, what's the most important versus what's less important, and then prioritize. Okay, so now I guess I'm ready to go back to I'm ready to go to 71, but I'm going to go back now to read the step again on LP4, number 5, now that I'm feeling more organized. So ask students, how do you feel when you have searched for something you need? And remember, we said frustrated, stressed, or angry. Tell students that another important aspect of time management is organizing their personal belongings. Ask students to talk about some of the things they could organize in order to manage their time more effectively. And the answers might include clothes or school supplies. Have students turn to page 71 and 72 and read this section, Get Organized, and emphasize that disorganization wastes time and causes frustration. Okay, so on page 71, do you misplace your jacket, lunch, glasses, or keys and pull your hair out looking for them while your ride honks impatiently waiting for you? If you can answer yes to this question, it's time to get organized. It reminds me, I'm not putting anybody down, but they call white people honkies? And I don't know, I don't use my horn, on my car, unless it's an emergency. But when I was living in Laredo, it's like all Spanish people love horns for some reason. When they come to their friend's house, it's honk, 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 honk. Like outside, you can just hear horns everywhere. It's really festive, And then, like if you're sitting at a stoplight, right? And the light just turned green. I mean, just turned green, and the person behind you is honk. It's like, man, it just turned green. What's the problem, But people love to use their horns in the South there for some reason, Just a tidbit of information for you. Don't be surprised if you ever go there and they start honking, They're not honking at you usually. They're just honking because they like to honk. And if you have a horn, I guess you can honk your horn, right? Okay, so being organized takes into consideration everything from your time to your belongings. The more organized you are, the less time you waste. Have you ever forgotten to bring a book home that you needed for homework and spent 20 minutes on the phone trying to call one of your classmates to see who has a book you can borrow? Or have you ever been myself, where I came to the class to teach and you noticed that all your pages were falling out? Hey, Mike, can I use your book? Right? Look, I told you I'm not perfect, okay? I'm learning, okay? And this book is helping me already, to get more organized. I'm reminding myself. That's the beauty of the Peaceful Solution. We're reminding ourselves while we're teaching, right? We're teaching ourselves what we need to do in order to be responsible teachers, in order to be responsible individuals, right? Okay, so it says, finally, you found someone who will lend you his book, but you have to walk over to his house to get it. You get back home, sit at your desk, and begin your homework and realize that you misplaced your pen. You spend another 10 minutes trying to figure out where you left your pen. And then by the time you finish finding your pen, you're like, now what was I supposed to do? What was I going to do with that pen and that book? So you see the waste of time there? You see how that can be frustrating? Look at the picture there. That boy looks like he's ready for the straitjacket, right? Well, whose fault is it? I'm not going to blame him. He hasn't been taught the peaceful solution yet, right? So, until we learn the peaceful solution and we practice the peaceful solution like we're learning now, we got to have time to practice this stuff. I've been bumping my gums now for 56 minutes. How much are you going to remember tomorrow? How much are you going to remember at 9 o'clock tonight? Right? So what I'm saying is we need time to take this in and internalize it by practicing, going over it again, reading it again, right? Until we make it a part of our daily routine, right? Because we're not going to become organized overnight. We're not going to learn to prioritize in one day. We're not going to learn wants versus needs necessarily all at once. It takes time to learn these things and practice them and make them a part of our daily lives. So, welcome to the world of a disorganized person. Being disorganized wastes time and effort and causes frustration and stress. And in the world of a disorganized person, everything takes twice as long and is twice as hard to accomplish, right? Because you have to do twice as much because you didn't plan, you didn't prioritize, organize, schedule, and do all the things that we've learned thus far, okay? So on the page 72, it gives us some points to help us get organized. Write down all your assignments and make sure you have all your books before leaving school. Get into the habit of doing certain things such as homework and chores at the same time every day. To avoid wasting time, look for the keys or glasses. To avoid wasting time looking for keys and glasses, have a specific place you're always put them. And by the way, if anybody sees a pair of glasses that looks just like these, they're mine. I still can't find them. I left them somewhere. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is me. This is me, man. Sad to say, this is me. Where did I put those glasses? Keep your belongings neat, clean, and orderly. Okay, these are points to help you get organized. Because organized people accomplish things in half the time. Learning to manage time also includes getting to all appointments on time. Remember Chris told us in some countries, it's like fashionable to be 2 hours late. I'm sorry, I don't want to live there. If I got to come to an appointment and wait 2 hours for somebody that thinks it's okay to be 2 hours late, that could be frustrating, right? So more power to Chris for being able to put up with that. I know Chris goes to those countries quite often, so he's probably used to it by now. But, boy, to me, that would seem to be very rude, But in some places, that's how they do things. People who are frequently late are seen as irresponsible and unreliable. Learning to be on time for events and activities demonstrates not only responsibility, but also shows respect for other people. Because remember, other people have a schedule too. Other people have already scheduled their day and prioritized and done all those things. And then we don't keep the schedule. That's being very disrespectful to that person. So it says, the fact is, no one likes to be kept waiting, especially when it occurs frequently. It causes the person who's waiting to become frustrated and even annoyed. And then they lose trust in you also, because they know you don't keep your word, You told them you're going to be there at a certain time and you weren't there. So here's a few simple ways to help you be on time. Buy a reliable watch and wear it. Buy a reliable alarm clock and use it. Set your watch and clock 10 or 15 minutes earlier, then function as if that was the actual time. And I know people that do that. Write a schedule of daily activities and events and refer to it often. And use a calendar to write any events and activities that are scheduled for a later time. Remember, these are all simple ways to help us to be on time and get organized. And finally, on page 72 at the bottom, think about it. Time lost can never be regained. Time lost can never be regained. And let's see. That's going to complete our class for tonight. Thanks for putting up with all the what do you call it, dysfunction. But remember chapter 2 of the character unit. There's always going to be dysfunction, right? But what we got to do is put up with the teacher and try to get through the class like we did, and you all did a great job tonight. So when's the next class? 17th. Okay, so the next class will be on March 17th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. Central Time. I hope you'll all join us. Have a great evening and keep learning that responsibility, everyone.